And welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Tennova Healthcare. When it comes to healthcare, sometimes the word care gets left out of the equation. At Tennova, I personally can assure you that care means more than just handing you a gown and some pills. Back in 2011, the folks at Tennova helped me through a serious illness. Not only did they treat me physically, but mentally I felt supported, I felt cared for. That's the most you can say for any group that gets in the healthcare business, that they do care for you on a number of levels, and it really does emphasize that word care. That's what Tennova did for me. I know that's what Tennova would do for you. I hope you trust them as much as I do. All right, want to welcome in the next round of panelists here. It's like hockey, we change lines. Bob Hodge, freelance contributor to the Knoxville News Sentinel. Bob, thank you.
Good morning.
Chuck Cavaleris, contributor to just about everything else in town. Media mogul, Golf News of Tennessee. Chuck, thanks for being here.
And the ring announcer for the Ace Miller Memorial Boxing Tournament last night. And thank you to all the people that said how much they enjoy your show, John.
Oh, okay. There you go. We'll allow it. Okay.
Ring announcer, wow.
Ring announcer.
Everything.
Ready to rumble.
Yeah. This past week, the Bruce Pearl train got rolling a little faster thanks to writers from USA Today, CBS, and Fox Sports. Meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, Kevin Stallings said anyone wanting Cuonzo Martin fired is an idiot. So those would be the extremes, I would think. But I wanted to get your take on something that I put on Mr. SEC this week. I think personally Martin's issues have more to do with his predecessor than they do him. And let's take a look at these numbers. There's Cuonzo Martin and what he's done so far through 3 years. And by the way, if you're sitting there saying he's got 57 wins, no, the win over Tusculum does not count. That's an exhibition game. I'm tired of seeing everybody write that is the 18th win when they have 17. All right, you see his numbers. There you see Buzz Peterson's numbers in his first 3 years. Now, Buzz caught some heat in year 4, obviously. He didn't make it to year 5, but that's where the big debate was with Buzz. You're getting a lot more debate over a guy that's had a lot more success with Cuonzo Martin. Now, I think you can turn around then and say that if a certain coach weren't coming off NCAA show cause penalties, you wouldn't be giving as much heat to Martin, in my opinion, if you didn't have that other coach out there. Thoughts? Wrong?
I'll disagree a little bit. I think that the world for coaches has changed since Buzz Peterson was here, and now it's a smaller time frame that you get to be successful. I also think it hurts Cuonzo Martin, his inconsistency. The fact that you can go and play as poorly as you did against Texas A&M twice and then come back and play as well as you did yesterday, I think that bothers people. And I think Buzz Peterson...
But you're sitting around the league.
That's true, but Buzz Peterson's team, he didn't win as many games, but you didn't have the...
They were
you look like a top 8 team. Yeah. Now you look like a bottom 100 team, and I think that hurts him.
I think that obviously the Bruce Pearl factor is something that you got to consider, because how many times do you make a coaching change in that manner? The coach stays in the town where the university is located.
Shows up at a Nashville event wearing orange.
And then he's also on ESPN now. And then plus you have this online petition with, 30,000 names that's saying, oh, we're not calling for Cuonzo to be fired.
Yeah.
But if a coaching change is made, we want Bruce to get the job. I mean, yeah, it has to be part of it.
And also in the context of who did Buzz Peterson follow? Jerry Green, who was fired basically because he was unpopular, not because he didn't win. And Buzz was this nice guy, good fit.
The little hamburgers that were made for him every time he'd come over. Yeah. And I think that's true. And whereas Cuonzo is following Bruce, and that's a different personality that's night and day. Jimmy, your thoughts on this?
And the success ratio. It's not just Bruce staying in town, but he had been to 6 consecutive NCAA tournaments. He'd been to the Elite 8. He'd been ranked number 1 in the country. Jerry Green had some success, but not at the level that Bruce did. So I think the bar was set higher replacing Pearl than it was Jerry Green.
I agree with that. I think there are 2 parts to that whole thing.
Right.
The first part is the guy's still in town, and he's going to be available. The second part is he did raise the bar. Now, whoever followed him is going to have to live to a certain level. I would go so far as to say that if Cuonzo Martin, this isn't fair, but I would say if Cuonzo Martin had been to 3 straight NCAA tournaments, made it to the second round and lost in the second round all 3 times, you'd still have a chunk of the fan base saying, yeah, thanks for keeping the seat warm.
I agree.
And I don't think that's fair. I mean, if the guy
I don't think it's fair, but I agree with it 100%. I think you would have that.
Now let's take Pearl out of the equation. Let's say your coach that you're looking for, you're going to have to go chase a Greg Marshall to put it in Tennessee, their history, maybe you go after Richard Pitino. because you've done really well with famous sons, with sons of famous fathers. But if you're looking at
Football
something,
deal.
yeah, if you're looking at another roll of the dice, would as many people be on Martin's case if Pearl were if he'd gotten a 5-year show cause ban like Jim Tressel did?
Or if he had a job somewhere else.
Or if he had a job somewhere else. Boston College is going to come open, his alma mater.
The availability of Bruce and him being in town contributes to that. I don't think there's any question about that. So, and also, and kind of to Bob's point, it is frustrating to see a team lose to Vanderbilt and then beat them by 38. Yeah. A year ago, you lose at Rupp, and as Mike pointed out, then you beat them by 30. Those are extenuating gaps. You know, it's not like, oh, you won this one you lost on the road by 2 and you won at home by 2. The difference in their level of play is what frustrates fans, because they look and say, look how good they can be, and then look how they struggle against teams.
But I mean, how much of that do you put on the players, and how much of that do you put on the coach too? I mean, it's like Coach DeVoe was saying, the focus of the players. They got to take ownership of a lot of that. I mean, I don't put that entirely on Cuonzo Martin's doorstep.
Not entirely, but at the same time, coaches do.
Yeah, I mean,
you're the one getting $1.3 million. I mean, the coach, whoever it is always going to get the blame, fair or not.
I'm going to put quite a bit of it on the coach. I mean, I think if you've got a team that can play, you're that talented, and you can play as poorly as they do, I think that comes back to the coach.
Here's what frustrates me about these shows, and I talked to a couple of you about this last Sunday. We discussed, Jimmy, Mike, you weren't here, but we discussed this stuff because it's all anybody's talking about in town. Everywhere you go, it's what people ask. Mm-hmm. We brought it up, and then afterward, the response was, because we try and do it fair, we try and show both sides. We show some numbers that are in support of Cuonzo Martin. At the same time, we're also discussing this topic while he's got a job. What you found is the people who want Pearl back said we were toting water for UT every time we showed the numbers that were positive for Cuonzo. The people who do not want Bruce back said, you guys are way out of bounds discussing this while we still have a coach. That's the problem with being fair. You tick off both sides. So all right, which is why I would prefer Tennessee just finally start winning and we stop getting out of these coaching hot seat type shows. All right, when we come back on the Sports Source, what's UT's spring practice to-do list? That's the Sports Source. Come on back.